Welcome to this mini lecture on participants, sampling, and settings. The term participants, sample, and population are often thrown around and can appear to be synonymous. However, they're vastly different meanings in research. So working backwards, the participants are the individuals who have agreed to take part in your study. The sample includes those individuals who you selected to ask to be in your study from the target population. For example, if your agency serves 100 clients, that is the population of your agency. You desire to randomly select 20 for the control group and 20 for a treatment group for your sample. However, after delivering the informed consent, only 18 from the control group and 16 from the treatment group agree to participate. Therefore, you now have 34 participants in your study. Before writing too much about the population in your methodology paper, consider some questions about your population. Are there individuals within the population accessible? Will the agency and the IRB approve of your study? And will your sample agree to participate? Is it even feasible to use this population for your study? Just because you have access doesn't mean that you should survey individuals. You want to be sensitive to protected populations, and you'll be conducting your study in the spring semester of your senior year. Will you still have access to the population after receiving IRB approval, but before senior symposium in May? Once you know your population demographics, consider how sensitive the questions that you might be asking are and the nature of the questions. How might your participants feel when they hear the questions or feel about answering them? Is there some that could put them at risk that you might consider choosing demographic questions that are very vague so you can maintain strong confidentiality? Also consider approximately how many participants you might have. If you have an agency that only serves one male, asking the gender on the survey would single him out. In essence, you would know exactly who it was that was answering. The goal of the questions and the participants is to make generalizable conclusions, not know what individual participants have reported that might connect them back to their identity. Finally, you need to decide who to sample and what demographic questions you might need to ask. There are many ways to select a sample, so sometimes it's helpful to draw a picture to capture the people within your population. Imagine that you're interested in learning about the difference between adults with children, adults with teenagers, and adults with no children and their time spent on Facebook. In order to get a snapshot of how much time Facebook users in these three categories spent, you would simply need a small sample from the population or the particular group. The following slides indicate how you might select from the three categories you are interested in. As we get into the different types of sampling, there are many rich videos, including the one posted as a hyperlink on the description of this video. If you feel like you have found one of the sampling options for your research study, take a look at the hyperlink and watch a more detailed video of that type of sampling. The web address is also listed on the slide, and this mini lecture just provides an overview. Here we're talking about simple random sampling. It allows each person in the population to have an equal chance of being chosen at random to participate in the study. Simple random is like throwing everybody's name in the hat and pulling out the number of participants you want. Systematic random sampling uses some type of list or process in which the sample is selected from the target population. So you have the population and you decide to sample every third person in that population. You have stratified random sampling. Stratified uses a technique that chooses participants proportionately by their desired characteristics. If you think back to our picture with adult Facebook users, maybe you want to get a good sampling of general adult Facebook users. You recognize there are people in multiple age groups, and you want to include a proportionate number of individuals within the 18 to 25 category, as is in the general adult Facebook population. Similarly, you want to have a proportion number of 26 to 30-year-olds and 31 to 35-year-olds, respectively. Cluster random sampling is in which there might be naturally occurring groups. So there can be predefined clusters from the target population. Think adults with children, adults with adolescents, and adults with no children. So you're looking at the clusters and sampling from those clusters. Convenience non-random sampling. Finally, the typical and most common among social work students is convenience non-random sampling. For this type of sampling, participants are selected because they are available and easy to measure. Sampling size is a bit ambiguous. However, according to Gall and Borg, there are some general best practices concerning the sample size needed to distinguish in the inferential statistics that you compute in your data analysis. So these are just some numbers that if you want to do a correlation, you might want to have 30 participants, causal, comparative, 15. Survey, you want to have at least 100 participants to make a good sample. Or you have a survey of 20 to 50 participants in each minor subgroup. So now that we've discussed participants, sample population, sampling design, let's discuss where that information fits within the methodology paper. As you can see by the square, the participants and setting components directly follow the restated research questions and hypothesis. Remember that in your paper you will use vague descriptions of the general area of your population, whereas for the IRB you will be specifically state the exact location of your population. So for the paper, you will say my sample was from a college in North Idaho, for example. In the IRB, you would say my sample came from North Idaho College. You have to be specific in the IRB, but vague on your paper to protect your participants. So for the participant component of your methodology paper, describe your overall population. Describe the overall population of which you are taking sample from. Should include published statistics. So U.S. Census or local data is often published in non-profit or government websites. So you want to fully describe who the people are in your population. Next, clearly describe the sample selection design. For example, you're using a convenience non-random sample. And finally, describe your sampling procedure. This section should be a mirror of what you put on your IRB concerning sampling and sampling procedure and population. Sometimes it's easier actually to answer the IRB questions first and then you write your section of the methodology paper. For the settings component of the methodology paper, describe the society and the culture of your population. This is where you assist the reader in understanding the backdrop of those who might eventually be your participants. If you are studying individuals who are homeless, rural, urban, or suburban communities, this will greatly impact the participants. Similarly, different communities have biases and impressions of various social issues. Therefore, understanding the setting in which the population resides can give the reader a larger picture of not only the participants of the overarching issue, but but also of the overarching issue that you are studying. Sometimes your settings will be Facebook if you're posting things on Facebook, so you need to then describe that the setting for the study will be on Facebook and the specific population that you are sampling on that group. So now that you have an overview of the participant setting, draft that section of your IRB and your methodology paper.